And so I jumped because I didn't, and then I jumped with my feet because I didn't want to go down. And so then I'm throwing rocks out in the garden at people's windows saying there's a guy out here trying to kill me. What the?
What?
It was from cocaine.
Dang.
I had a psychotic break.
Oh,
So the
crazy.
fire, isn't it? So the fire department and police came and they were told I had a red bra on and just booty shorts on. And we were told never to go back to the Holiday Inn. Yeah.
Wow.
So-
Jeez, that is frightening. Did you have any injuries from jumping or anything?
I don't know. So they told us to go to the hospital, and then I was too ashamed. So this is where shame comes in.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to welcome you to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. Just want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel. Sober Strong Apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. Heavyweight tees, hoodies, and gear for ones who draw a hard line. Clean, sober, no compromise. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor. And every piece you throw on says you're a part of the crew that doesn't back down. Every order fuels recovery with 10% donated to treatment facilities because we don't just talk about it, we stand on it. So go to SoberStrongApparel.com, use code ROCKBOTTOM, all capital letters, for 15% off. Now 15% off. Awesome site, awesome clothes. Quality is amazing. The clothes looks good. Wearing a shirt as we speak. So thank you very much for watching this episode, and definitely check out SoberStrongApparel.com.
All right, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with my guest today, Stephanie. Stephanie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, really happy to have you here. This is a recovery podcast, as you know. So today we'll be talking recovery and a little bit about your past and history with addiction, and then kind of lead into where you're at today and what you're doing to help people. It sounds like you're doing a lot to help people. I can see providing education, inspiring change, all that stuff. So
Hmm.
first and foremost, last couple basic questions. Where are you from and what's your sober date and what was your drink or drug of choice?
Sure. So I am from Kingston, New Hampshire, and I got sober August 8th of 2015. And my drug of choice, I loved cocaine and alcohol. And then I stopped with heroin, cocaine, alcohol, benzos, pretty much anything that I could get my hands on. But yeah, cocaine was really my drug of choice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was alcohol and cocaine, I guess, was a big part of my life for like 6, 7 years. So I totally understand that one. It was easier for me to quit for some reason than alcohol, but I don't know. I know for some people it's a little the opposite.
Yeah, it was tough. It
But
was really tough
did
for
it go
me.
hand in hand with alcohol with you?
In my younger years, it did. I loved, when I was like in my teens and my 20s, it fueled it, the alcohol with the cocaine, added with some benzos to sort of, just sort of get out there and just be in that benzo haze, I would call it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it did.
Okay. So let's kind of backtrack a little, go into, what was your childhood like? What was it like with your family? What was the dynamic there? And then kind of what led into like your first use and all that, and describe that.
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up in New Hampshire. I had a good childhood, but like on the outside, everything looked great. We had the white picket fence. My dad had a great job. He recently retired a few years ago. My mom had side jobs here. She did house cleaning in Rye, New Hampshire for like mansions and whatnot. And I was involved in ballet. I did tap. I did some horse riding for a little bit, cheerleading, things like that. But by the time I was 13, 14, me and my brother, we started getting into fights with my mom. And my dad just was like, I'm out. He really didn't know how to deal with it. And, there was
What
some
was the age
dysfunction
difference
in
with your brother?
a year, 11
A year.
months, 11 months,
Okay.
Irish twins. Yeah.
So a couple of teenagers right at once for her, I guess. And guys were just clashing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were, yeah. You mean me and my mom or my brother?
Yeah. I mean, you, your brother, and your mom. It sounds like two kids kind of
Yeah.
going through that phase of life. I'm sure they just started to clash. That's what happened to me and my dad kind of growing up. So got along great
Did
until I
you?
was about
Yeah.
12. And then I just flipped the switch and I was rebellious. And then I saw a side of him I'd
Yeah.
never seen before. And it just, yeah.
Yeah. And so my mom will remind me sometimes like it wasn't all bad, and the truth is it wasn't. But of course, I'll remember the bad times, and because it was really tough for me. Like I wanted to get along with my mom, but we were started like calling each other names and it was scary at times. And I just wanted out. I wanted out. And she would say things to me and I would say things to her, but this eventually led to me seeking relief, excuse me. And, I started hanging out with the girl who came from a troubled background, so she and her got into the liquor cabinet at 13 or 14. And then prior to that, I started stealing cigarettes from my father, so I just was like sort of this angry, I'm just going to rebel. I'm going to rebel. And I did, and,
What
seeking
was your
love
first
from
sign of rebellion or being rebellious?
probably going to there was a store called Bayberry Variety at the end of this street. And I started stealing cigarettes, you know,
My
um,
first rebellious stuff was
yeah,
shoplifting as well. So yeah,
yeah, there you
I get it.
go.
I get it. It's a good way to start off, I guess.
It is, yeah, and I loved it. I was addicted to excitement. And then I started, boys and, seeking love in all the wrong places. And I think it just comes with the age too. There's nothing wrong with that. But some of these boys were just, just whatever, and
Mhm.
so either way, and it's like I hung out with some of the crowd that wasn't so great. And then also I would hang with like the jocks. I'd hang with the skaters. I just was looking for the right identity because I didn't really know who I was either.
Yeah,
I was lost,
kind
you
of identity
know?
crisis. Not sure who you
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. There was like a
And
phase during that time
yeah.
where I was dressing like a skater, and then I was dressing like a gangbanger, and then I was dressing preppy. I was like, I don't know who I am.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And my mom and dad had their struggles. Like they were separated the first time. I think I was 16. There's just a lot of turmoil in my household. And my mom was working at Barnes and Noble at that time. It's a bookstore out here in New England. And I don't know if you guys have it up there.
We do.
So oh, you do? Okay. And so she was doing
Mhm.
really well there. She loved her job. And so she was sort of escaping there. And my father worked for a local, a well known supermarket chain here, and he was doing really well. So me and my brother were like, woo, we did whatever we wanted. And there were repercussions, but yet we just was sort of like, screw this. And we caused some hell, I can see it
Did you and
now.
your brother get along well?
Then we did. Yeah, we did. My friends loved him. They thought he was so cute. And I was like, leave my brother alone. Like, come on, So
Yeah.
the big sister,
Yeah, exactly.
But that's when like the cocaine came in, the acid, the weekend warrior. And
Hmm.
I had a bad trip, my second acid bad trip. And I'm like, I'm not touching acid again. And I'll just stick to the cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started working in the food industry. My best friend her family owned a restaurant. And so, of course, I went with a chef, started
Hmm.
dating a chef. So, yeah, it just sort of evolved like drinking, drugging on the weekends. My schoolwork sort of was like, what's schoolwork? I don't even care anymore. And I
Yeah.
started settling for less at a very young age.
You started pretty
So,
young then. You were partying pretty hard with the older kids on the weekend, or was a lot of people your age, 13, 14, 15, partying too?
um, older kids, my friends had older sisters, older brothers. We started going to a city, um, excuse me, I'm sorry about that, near New Hampshire. I mean, New Hampshire, near New Hampshire, called Haverhill, Mass. And we would bring 40s to Haverhill with smoking blunts, and that was the thing to do when we were 17 or 18. And yeah, so that's what we would do.
And your grades, they were kind of struggling throughout high school, or were you able to maintain pretty well, or how are you doing?
My grades started declining in high school. So C's, D's. And due to some of the dysfunction in my home, I just couldn't. Me and my mother were really fighting. I had gotten kicked out of the house. I lived with a best friend of mine for a few months, and I went back home. And then by the time I was 18, I lived with another woman, a friend of mine, with her family. I lived with her probably longer than a few months, almost 6 months to 9 months.
I
And
did the exact same thing in high school.
you
I
did?
had like my friend's parents just took a couple of different friends' families took me in. My friend with the single mom in a small studio apartment let me stay there for like half my senior year. So just because my
Yeah.
house was so chaotic and I couldn't get along with my dad and it was crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I can
Yeah.
relate.
Yeah, and it was looking back, I have some pictures when I was living with this friend of mine, and I have a picture of me on the phone with my mom, and I was being disrespectful. You know, I I was just I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And that was go to work. I started working at Friendly's. I don't know if you know Friendly's. Friendly's is it was
It's
a
a
chain.
restaurant, right?
They're pretty much gone now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like a
Yep.
diner or something kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a diner, an ice cream shop, and they have, like, sandwiches. It was so popular
Yeah.
about 20 years ago.
My dad's
And
from the
after I
East
s
Coast, from
Oh,
Vermont,
he
so I'm
is?
familiar with like Manchester and Rutland, Vermont, and all that area a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I was working at Friendly's, and that's where I met this friend of mine, and their family was so much fun. But, it was a party thing too, and we all wanted to have fun,
Yeah.
and it just got out of hand, and I eventually did go back home. I think this was after high school. I ended up dropping out of high school because they wanted me to continue on in high school for another year, so it would have been 5 years.
Hmm.
And, I manipulated, or I told my father, "Dad, I'll get my GED," which thank God I got my GED, "and let me work at Friendly's full time. I'll do this full time." And so my career did blossom with them. I would travel for Friendly's down south to North Carolina and Pennsylvania. I did help open up restaurants. So
Cool.
it wasn't all bad, at that time, but it was like
It wasn't
work
like your
hard.
dream career at the time, kind of thing.
It wasn't, or it was?
It was not your dream career at the time, but you were kind of still moving up in the ranks at Friendlies. It seems like.
It was, yeah. I mean, I was moving up, but I don't know if it was my dream career. I mean, like, I really wanted to be like a hairdresser. I had so many different aspirations, but I chose that because that's where I was, and I wasn't doing well academically in high school. So I chose that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it fit in with the drug and with the alcohol and what I was doing. So I was like, sure, it worked,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Work hard,
know?
play hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, So I was about 18 or 19 there. And like I said, eventually I did move back home after I left that friends, and I continued with Friendlies. And eventually, my parents went up to Lake Winnipesaukee. That's in New Hampshire. We would boat up there. And that was a tradition we had done since I was little. We'd get a cottage every summer. And one summer, my father and mother were up there, and me and my brother were still at home. And we decided to have a party at our house. And I was running late to work because I was getting ready for this party, and I was probably about an hour late to work at Friendly's, and my boss came around the corner and she goes, "Stephanie, you're late. That's it." And I called her an effing B, and you can't do that to your boss.
No. No.
It doesn't go well. No, and it was this sense of entitlement I had, like, I can show up whenever I want and it's okay. And that's sort of how I operated in the world. I'm having a party at my house. Don't you know who I am? I just got my hair done. That's how I thought. I thought, the world revolved around Stephanie, and that's just not the case.
Hmm.
And I got fired after like 3 years I was working there, and I did well. Like, I could have moved up within that corporation, you
So although
know.
you're partying hard, you were still pretty functional and getting your stuff done that you needed to. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
How much
And
do you
so, of
think you
course,
were drinking and using at the time?
I was basically at about an 8 ball or two on the weekends. Like my check, not all my check would go there, but and then I would drink 30 racks on the weekend, like Friday night, not a whole 30 rack, but we'd get a 30 rack, and then, I loved like peach schnapps. Oh my gosh, I was into the fruity drinks then. Peach schnapps and coconut rum, Parrots Bay. I loved Parrots Bay. Oh my gosh, it's bringing it back,
Oh yeah, that brings back memories.
yeah. The fruity drinks. So yeah, that's what I was doing. And then, so by the time I was like 19 or 20, I have a very long story, so I don't want to be here forever. And so by the time I was 20 or so, I always ran to my father. Like I had a very dependent. I didn't know how to really help myself. To some degree I did, but by the time, like I said, I was 20, I ran to my dad. My dad said, "Sure, I'll get you a job, Stephanie." And this was a lot of learned behavior in my upbringing. And so my dad says, "Sure, there's a country club in Andover, Mass, Market Basket, where he had worked. Well, reputation. My father has a great reputation with that company." And so I go to this place, the country club, and now I've been a server. I know how to work in the food industry. I mean, a couple places I worked. And so I get a job as a server, fine dining. I'm making great money. They love me. I love them. I'm personable. I become an assistant manager. I'm doing blow on the weekends. I'm drinking. I meet my son's father at my manager's wedding, drunk. My son was probably conceived in the parking lot or that night. I don't know. Your eyes.
That's okay.
But that's the thing is, like, when I drink, I don't know like what's going to happen. Like I don't know, And so Um, yeah, my drinking escalated. So when I was working at this place, I would take limos to Boston. I loved it. It was so much fun. We would make a lot of money. At one point I was making 800 a week, and once my son was born, my mother was a problem. "Mom, you want to be the mother? I'm the mother." It was like this competition,
Yeah.
and it
And you were
just
like
became
22 or so? Or...
yeah, I had him when I was 21. I found out I was pregnant a month after I turned 21.
hmm
And I didn't drink with him, thank God. I did really good. Sometimes he'll say, "You drank with me." I'm like, "I didn't drink with you, Devin." And so I'm like, "I don't know where you hear that from, but I did not drink with you. I didn't do drugs. I might have taken a toke here and there, but I didn't, anyways." And so, and he knows that. I'm like, "I did not." Anyways. And so I had a hard time once he was born. 4 days later, because he was born on July 1st, July 4th, I'm out partying.
I'm a July
Like,
2nd baby, so
oh, you are? Okay. There you
yeah.
go. Cancers are great. He's such a good kid. Yeah.
Very sweet, sensitive people, I think.
Yeah, and that's who he is. Yeah, he's such a good kid. And I didn't know how to be a mom. I wasn't prepared to be a mom. I didn't understand the gravity of it. And so, like, the truth is like my mom was being helpful and I just was like, I'm the mom, like, and so that was my stuff. And I know that now. And so of course I took my son and a colleague of mine at the country club. We got an apartment together. And honestly, it just fueled my addiction, like my drinking and drugging. I'm down at River City Billiards, which is closed now. Oh my gosh. But I'm playing pool, I'm drinking, I got somebody watching my son. I just wanted to live a single life. I didn't liked being a mom, but like I wanted to do both. It really doesn't work out. You can't party and be a mom. It's really hard to do that. So by the time I was 23, because now the woman I was living with, she's my problem too, right? So I get my own apartment in the city next to where I was living on the third floor. And one of the women, the girls that I hung out with in high school, she did coke. And so coke and alcohol, like what you had asked me earlier, coke and alcohol was going hand in hand. It was just fueling it.
hmm
And this girl that I hung out with in high school, she lived in this city and she introduced me to crack cocaine. Whew. Yeah, that's another level, and I didn't understand the depths of crack cocaine until I started doing it. And so I'm going to this country club serving, smoking crack in the bathroom, and then I'm coming out like, okay, I'm ready. I'm totally zooted
Yeah,
out
it's
of
a
my
whole
mind.
different kind of adrenaline rush. Yeah. I've done it a few times and I was like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
different. This is not like doing a bump.
No, no. And I remember the general manager of the country club was like, and she's pretty like, she's intense. And she's like, Stephanie, what is going on with you? And I'm like, nothing. Get up off my back, total like, I didn't even know the word denial then, but I was like, I was just in my addiction, and I'll never forget it. So I was 23 at this point. My son was almost 2, and I lived on the 3rd floor apartment. And this was like one of my like bottoms, but I don't consider it a bottom. I consider later on in my 20s, I've had huge 2 bottoms, but this is one of them. And I hate saying this, but I would put my son to bed and like just give him bottles, and like I would leave him in the crib, and I would just like go out and hope he'd fall asleep. Like this was towards the end of it. And this part, and there'd be bottles, empty bottles of just milk, dry milk. And at the end, I went to bed at 6 in the morning after partying with like 5 people in my apartment. And I got him up the next morning, that morning at 6. And then I tried to give him another bottle. And then he's roaming around my apartment on the 3rd floor. And I fell asleep. My friend called me. He picks up the phone and he goes, "Where's mommy? Where's mommy? Where's mommy?" She came over banging. He's roaming around. Everybody's passed out. I'm passed out. And that was my first intervention with my family coming over and saying, "You need to help. Like, this is serious. Like, there's straws, like cut straws and stuff."
Mhm.
My place was a mess. And I was introduced to a detox up in New Hampshire. And I was like, this isn't for me. I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this, and I went to appease my family. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what I had. I was very like, you know, I didn't get it. Yeah. And it
How old
makes
were you
me
at that point?
sad. I was 23. It's a little over 23. Uh, It makes me
No, I
sad for
understand
my
it makes you
son.
sad just knowing the reactions and the position your son was in and all that stuff. I'm sure that was pretty heartbreaking for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I've healed from that, and like my family's in a good place now, but like just to know how sick I was even then. And for a long time, I didn't realize how sick I was and how bad the addiction had me then, And so I remember coming home to my parents' house in New Hampshire, and I just said, I can't get sober here. I'm going to take my car and I'm going to go live in the crack house. That was a sound decision for me. I'm being facetious. And I remember my dad, I remember it clear as day. He looks at me like, okay. Like, I don't think he knew what to say. My parents were separated for the second time. My mother had an apartment in another town. And obviously, I didn't take my son, but I didn't say I was going to go live in a crack house. I just said, I'm going to go live with a friend. But I went and stayed in this house, and that's pretty much what I did for about a year and a half. And I took that car that was leased, or it was, not a lease. It was I paid a car payment on it that my dad helped me with, and I tried working here and there, and eventually I lost my job at that country club, and I couldn't show up to work. I couldn't do anything. And when I was living in that crack house, my mother eventually, she told me later, she called the cops on that crack house and it got raided. And I'll never forget when
Wow.
I went into that crack house and there were 2 cops standing at the door, and I knew in my head, I go, that doesn't look normal. And I went up to the 3rd floor, and I could have been in that drug raid, and I wasn't. Uh, and I was told when I was in that crack house, like, don't hang out with that guy right there. Don't hang out with him. He gets women shooting up. He gets women shooting up. And I'm like, I don't do needles. I will not go with that guy. He was a former drug and alcohol counselor who relapsed. But he had a Bahama hat. He drove a Jaguar. Um, so he looked appealing, right? Because the eyes, right? When you see something, you go, that looks good. That looks flashy. So when the drug house got raided, and I was left alone, he wasn't in the raid. This guy, Angel, took me in on a mattress on the floor with cockroaches after the raid. This guy, the drug counselor, came in looking for Coke. The guy, Angel, goes, "Why don't you take that with you too?" Referring to me. And the guy, the drug counselor, goes, "You want to come?" And I said, "Sure, I'll go with you." It was better than sitting on the mattress on the floor with cockroaches. So I went with the drug counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And the counselor says to me, that who relapsed, he says, why are you trying to mix the crack? You're wasting it. You should shoot it. And I said, I don't do needles. But the thought of shooting it and having a better high sort of enticed me. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
like a hook, line, and sinker for me. So I remember I went to the hotel because he was staying in a hotel, and I put my arm out and I go, all right. And so I'll never forget my first high shooting up. I got high off the Coke, and I'm holding up the air conditioner in the hotel. It was a Holiday Inn in Haverhill, Mass. And I'm holding it up. I still have the receipt. We got kicked out because I eventually had my first overdose. I jumped off the second floor balcony. This was like a few weeks later. I went and got my hair did. He gave me some money to get my hair done. And I came back. I'm smoking crack after the my hair. And my friend had done it, and she's like, you were acting so weird in the when you came out of the bathroom. So I come back to the hotel, and he shoots me up, and it was too much, and I overdosed off Coke. And this was my first, I had a cocaine psychosis, and I had there was foam on the pillow, and I didn't know where I was. And so he had a gun in the room, a BB gun. I know it was a BB gun, but it was a BB gun. And so in my head, because he was buying Coke from New York. And so I started throwing stuff at him, and he went to the door, and I said, "Get away from me, get away from me." And then I went to the sliding door, and what came to my mind was, because I grew up with a pool, what came to my mind was the stick figure of somebody jumping, but don't jump with your head because you'll crack
Yeah.
your neck. And so I jumped because I didn't, and then I jumped with my feet because I didn't want to go down. And so then I'm throwing rocks out in the garden at people's windows, saying there's a guy out here trying to kill me. What the?
What?
It was from
Dang.
cocaine. I had a psychotic break. So
Wow, that is crazy.
isn't it? So the fire department and police came, and they were told I had a red bra on and just booty shorts on, and we were told never to go back to the Holiday Inn. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Jeez, that is frightening. Did you have any injuries from jumping or anything?
I don't know. So they told us to go to the hospital, and then I was too ashamed. So this is where shame comes in. I was too ashamed to go into the Holy Family up in Haverhill. We drove there, and I'm like, I'm not going in. And and I didn't want to get in trouble. It's all the stuff that goes through a person who's doing drugs or, with addiction. I got hip issues. I got back
Yeah.
issues today.
You never know. That
So,
could have something to do with it. Jeez.
yeah.
That's crazy. So that was your first time ever shooting up, and then you overdosed and had a
Yeah.
psychotic
eh,
break, basically.
Yeah.
Did you ever shoot up again after that?
Yeah. Oh, well, what do you think? Yes, I didn't stop. Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't stop. Yeah. It
Wow.
had me. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened after that night then? You just kind of continued, but you guys went elsewhere?
Yeah. So Haverhill, Lawrence, and Lowell are pretty big known cities I should say Lynn, in Massachusetts. And so we were in Haverhill, and then we went to Lawrence, and we started hanging out there in another crack house that he knew, and a drug den, if you will. It was a shooting gallery as well. And we started hanging out with this couple, and they had a drug problem. And so then he was going to buy an ounce or two from this guy, oh my God, in New York. And he was taking money because he was a drug and alcohol counselor. He was taking money out of his K to do this and to pay like how he was living. He was just living in a hotel. And it was a summer that I'll never forget, summer in the fall. And he ended up ripping him off is what he did. And I became pretty paranoid and pretty psychotic when all this happened because we just kept using Coke, shooting Coke, shooting Coke, shooting Coke. It was nonstop. And then he ripped him off, and I had this guy out for me from New York, and my life was in danger. And then, of course, I got very crazy because it just fueled my
Paranoid.
paranoia when I was on Coke. and day
Mhm.
up for days for like 3 or 4 days.
Nice.
And then he went back to his wife, and I was left to fend for myself.
Wow. So did he go back to his wife because he wanted to get clean, or did he just run out of like resources, or what?
I believe it was I don't think it was pure intentions, but I don't wanna take his inventory, but I think it was a little bit of both, but I would say it was more he ran out of resources. Everything ran out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah.
crazy. So he went on like a quite the not I know it's not your story to tell, but it just he went on like a big bender after being sober for quite a while. It
Yeah,
sounds like.
yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what'd
So
you do after he left then?
so I was about 24 at this 25, and then, my aunt so I have a lot my family, my aunt, my cousin, my dad my mom was pretty angry. Me and my mom were not getting along at all. And so, in between all that, I was Section 35. So, in the state of Mass, when you're Section 35, you're a danger to yourself and to others. And so, in between there, I did get Section 35, and this might have been the first time I was sectioned. After he left, I was sectioned and I was sent to, when he left, this is exactly when it happened. I was sent to, because I was going to my great aunt's, and I was running out of resources because he was gone. And so I went to my aunt's, and what happened was I was so geeked out. She said, "Steffi, give me your," they call me Steffi. They go, "Steffi, give me your keys." And so what I did was, we're manipulative when we're under the influence. I gave her my keys, but I took my key off to my car. And
Okay.
I go, "I'm going out for a cigarette." And so I go out for a smoke. And what I did was I jumped in my car and I flew to Lawrence to get like one more bag. It's always one more bag. And what happened was I called her when I ran out of gas coming home. This is when they were payphones. And I went to the payphone. It was like probably 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I said, "Lori, I ran out of gas." And then next thing you know, I hear click, click. It's a woman officer on my window. And I got my arm on the door and I'm trying to hit. And I got needles all on my passenger side floor. And that's when I went to the station in Lowell, Mass, because I was in Tewksbury. They're right next to each other. And I'll never forget the police officer. He was a man. He just was because I had blood splats on it was a UNH sweatshirt, and he just was staring at me, looking at me. And I said, "Don't judge me." I said, "You don't know what I've been through." And the woman officer says, "It's all right. It's okay." I could just feel it. I could feel it. And I'll never forget it. That's why I do what I do. One of the reasons why I love what I do. And so that's when my first section was, and I went downstairs and a clinician came down to see me. They ask you questions, and I felt it from her too. And then I went to Framingham prison. I went to prison for like 7
Jeez.
days. I went to prison for it.
For possession or what was it?
For like addiction. They didn't know how to treat people then. It's different now in the Massachusetts, but like, yeah, I had to go to prison.
Wow.
My mom and dad came to visit me. And I was like in a green, or I think it was a green orange suit, green jumpsuit. Anyway, DOC, Department of Corrections. I mean, you have to bend over and everything when you go there. It's
Yeah.
so
It's
humiliating.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
like my mom and dad were like in shock that I was there, in shock. And when I got out, when I went back to court, my aunt said she would take me into her custody. And so I lived with my aunt for a couple weeks, and I had to do like probation and like do all these colors and urines. And I worked at like Papagino's. So then I would go to Lawrence though. I would go to Lawrence to still pick up and cop. I still, or
So you
like
weren't
I
ready to
waited
quit at this point.
no, no, God, no. And then I met a guy. It's always a guy. And I just didn't know another way. My son wasn't in my life. I thought he was going to fix me, or like not that I thought he was going to fix me to some degree. Like I just didn't know another way. And then I met this guy and I, I moved in with him. Like I left my aunt's and I moved in with this guy. I would think I was 26 or 25, 26. And I lived with him for a couple years. And he had some addictions. He just wasn't well. And he had some women problems and a codependency. And we would binge So we wouldn't do, he has his own business and he would binge on Coke probably every couple months. And so it was like under the radar. And so like there was some control there,
Yeah.
you know?
Which probably helped with your use. Did you kind of go along with that idea, or
Yeah.
were you continuing to use when he would take breaks?
I was doing dope then. So I started heroin.
Okay.
So I wouldn't use cocaine because, he would buy the cocaine, but I would buy a 20 bag of heroin. So then I didn't realize
How
like
did
I was
heroin
getting
start, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know, to be quite honest. I think I just started it because I knew of it or somebody offered it to me or yeah, yeah. I
Was it
had
like
done
an
it
instant fall in love with it basically and started using it right off the bat, or you just tried it a few times, or was it pretty full on use?
full on use, but like I liked IV drug use cocaine rather than IV drug use heroin at that time.
Oh,
So I just didn't like my life. I hated where I was living. I didn't know how to get out of it. And the guy I was living with wasn't really the nicest. And I just was in this really unhealthy situation. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, he wasn't mean. He just wasn't the greatest. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of relationships, when you're in addiction, turn out to be toxic or unhealthy, it seems like. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So take me to the next step of so you were with him and you eventually left him and kept using?
No. So I did eventually leave him. I went and put myself into detox and because I knew I needed some help off of the heroin and I was doing benzos too. And so when I got out, I had 3 grand mal seizures from benzos and I went into the nearest hospital. Then when I got home to his house, I'm like, what am I doing? And I found a Bible from my grandmother and like I was like, you need to leave this man. It's not healthy. And I need to do something different with my life. So my parents took me in a nice town here in Massachusetts. My mom and dad were reconciling. They were trying again to get together or get along, I should say. And they were raising my son. My son was about 6 or 7 at this point. He was about 6. And so there was like a refinished basement and they were like, Stephanie, we're really concerned. You can come live with us. And so, like, I had been to AA, I had been to NA, I had done multiple treatment centers. My dad sent me to New York. My dad spent a lot of money refinance the house in New Hampshire before. Like, he's done it. And like, so like he was willing for me to come home and I was willing to do that. So it's not like they hadn't tried. That's my point. And so I came home and where they were living, and I said, well, I'm going to do the God route. I've seen so many horrible things in the world. I had family members that were Catholic. I had family members that were Jehovah's Witnesses. I said, I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to research God. I was a bit like on the pink cloud. I'm not sure if you've heard of the pink cloud. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So I decided to research God, and that's what I did. So I decided to study and be a Christian. And, I actually became baptized as a Jehovah's Witness for a little bit. The thing is like, didn't, I did not hang out with people who were like me. Eventually, like, I reasoned that the Bible says alcohol's okay. And then I got everything back. I got back my son. I got custody back of him. Like I said, I got the career. I just had faulty reasoning and I thought it was all external. Right. So I was about 28 at that time. And I kind of became a little obsessed, like with the whole God thing, God, God, God. And I didn't have balance in my life. And so just like, I'm a big book person, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a big book person today, but I believe in balance. And so like Dr. Bob says, or Dr. Bob, he was a spiritual person, but he needed to have connection with Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. So back then I didn't have that transmission line with another alcoholic. I just thought that I could rest on the religious piece or the spiritual piece. Today I don't belong to an organized religion. I believe in just being spiritual, but it worked for me then for a little bit. So either way, so when I was 28, 29, my thinking was faulty and I see it now, but eventually the alcohol, I would say to myself, well, I put the drugs down, so, why can't I drink? And eventually the drinking, I was having bottles of wine up in my room, which my dad refurnished that whole house he got from his parents who died. Me and my son had the whole upstairs to ourselves. I was helping my son with his homework. I was doing things with his school. It was beautiful. But eventually I couldn't do that. And I was hiding bottles of wine in my closet. And then next thing you know, I became a kitchen manager. I was making great money. I had a new Honda Accord. So it was all those outside things, and I never looked inside. And then next thing you
Yeah.
know, I'm asking a manager for a cigarette. Cigarette's a big clue for me too when I start smoking butts again. And then next thing you
Hmm.
know, I'm in Lawrence asking for heroin because cocaine was my problem.
Wow. So you're
So
justifying it all.
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
So how much did you have some sober time under your belt before you started drinking wine again?
I had about 8 months, if that. Yeah,
That's still a lot of time. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So then you started
So,
drinking, and then how long after you started drinking did the heroin kind of kick back in?
probably about a year and a half, 2 years. So I was 31 when I was in a full blown relapse.
Wow.
So 28 to 31. Yeah.
All right. And what happened during that relapse exactly? Did you keep your job and everything? Your relationships with your dad and your kid?
Well, I kept the relationships, but not so. No, they got very strained. My dad doesn't know how to deal with it. My dad he cleans, he doesn't know how to communicate. Like, I remember when I was upstairs dope sick, my cousin Lori came over because they've been through this with me. My dad won't say, Steph, I'm worried that you've relapsed. Like, what's happening with you? He just moves around. It's nervous energy. And Lori came, we had to call the ambulance because I had never been that dope sick before. I was leaving on my lunch break to go to Lawrence to get heroin. This is when heroin was heroin. It's not heroin anymore. It's fentanyl. And I was so sick. And Lori came over, and then the EMT came to my house, and they couldn't get the stretcher upstairs because it's a narrow hallway. But no, anyway, so the relationships I had then, they got strained because they section 35 me again. And I remember I went to the courthouse when they shut the jail cell, I just put my head down like, I can't believe I'm here again. I'm 31 years old and I'm here again. Like, I can't believe it. It sucked.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm not there
So
now.
what happened after that then? How did you come out of jail, and did you start to change then, or was that your wake up call?
No, it wasn't. So, I decided to my dad tried to send me, I think I went to I know I went to the Plymouth House. I don't remember if I went anywhere before that, but I did go to the Plymouth House for a day. The Plymouth House is very well known up here in New Hampshire. It's a 12-step program. And I took a pill from a family member. I took a benzodiazepine. It's like, I couldn't just be. And I was like, yes, I got away with it. And then they're like, Steph, we forgot to urine you when you came here. And I got
Oh, geez.
urines. And then I got sent to
And
this.
so
What's that?
and you test positive for like barbiturates or something when you
Yeah.
take, because I used to take Xanax. Yeah. So I
Okay.
remember I was
Yeah.
like,
I
oh, I
was
can get away with
Ativan.
this, but then I was like, oh, yeah,
Yeah. Nope.
I remember.
And then I lie and I'm like, oh, it must still be in my system from the detox. And they're like, no, I was always trying to manipulate the system.
Mm,
And
yeah, we all
then they
did.
sent me to, right? Yeah. And then they sent me to Penny's place up in Maine. Portland, Maine, which is very well known for their recovery. And I was there like a few months, and I'll never forget the woman who was taking me through, and I love her. Her name is Kate, and she's like, you're not getting honest. You can't see the truth in your turnarounds in the fourth step. And the truth was, I couldn't. I was just like, all the lies I was telling myself that was holding my addiction together for so long. And so I eventually left that program. It just wasn't working out. And my father wasn't getting along with the director, since closed. It was a weird program. I will say that she took me off a medication that I was supposed to be on, which I have to say is very important if you're supposed to be on a medication. Because some of these places, if they're not, they don't have, if they're not psychiatrists or mental health clinicians, they should not be taking you off meds. Um, And then secondly, I went to a sober house in Amesbury, Mass, and I picked up at 8 months sober. I just couldn't get it, Ryan. Like, I thought that I was mentally, it says it in the big book, I thought that I was mentally incapable of getting sober. I thought there was something wrong with me. And I thought I was going to die of this thing, you know? And so anyway, so then eventually I landed in another sober house in Lawrence, Mass. And I was buying people, I was buying them cartons of cigarettes. I was hoping that people would just like me if I bought them, you know, people pleasing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I met my sponsor there, and she had a wedding, and I met a guy. And I said, I can't date you. I'm working on my program. That didn't work. Great guy. And, you know, it was genuine, wasn't one of us. And I moved in with him. And this was in 2015. His name was Paul, and this was in the summer of 2014, I should say, 2014. And eventually he became my program. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped talking with my sponsor, and I slowly started manipulating again. Like, well, if you don't get pot, I'm just going to get it myself. Kind of like very childlike. And
Yeah.
I couldn't accept that he loved me. He really loved me for who I was. And he goes, if you can't accept that, Stephanie, I can't be with you. And then in that year, going into 2014, 2015, his driving, his motor skills started going. And come to find out, we went to Holy Family Hospital, and they had to ship him to Mass General right away. And on the way there, I went to Lawrence to cop. And he was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And yeah, this is where my recovery, it shifts. My addiction turns into my recovery. And he loved me like nobody ever has loved me. And I wasn't able to show up for him like I wanted to, because I've never experienced love like that. And it's a living amends to him, because he asked me to marry him February of 2015. I said yes. So I gave him something that he wanted. And then he gave me something for my life. I'm in recovery today, because it was the most painful thing that I ever went through, you know, that he's not here today. You know, he died.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
He loved you for you.
Yeah, he accepted all of me. Like, he knew that I was struggling. He knew I had an addiction, you know, and he didn't care. So I took out all of my profit sharing from Market Basket, $22,000. I got penalized on it. And I wanted the pain to stop. I hated how I felt. I hated how I ruined my life. I thought I was never going to get sober. And I shot it, smoked it, snorted it. I was on a Pepsi and sugar diet. And, you know, my cousin would come stay with me in our apartment, because I was literally walking into walls. I was getting so high. And my dad was not paying for another treatment center, and it was the best thing he ever did. And then I lost the apartment because I couldn't pay for it. And then I had my third overdose. I had a second overdose in my late 20s with that guy I was living with. But I had my third
Do you think
overdose.
do you think you were passively suicidal in some ways? Like, just the fact that you were,
Yes.
you know, still using, and you're just like, I don't care if I die, you know, because I was at
Yeah.
that point too. So, okay.
Yeah,
I was just
I would
curious.
ask God to take me when I would go to sleep or pass out. I'd be like, please, God, just let me not wake up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was at my lowest point. And so there was a guy in it was called the Manor where I lived. And there was a guy that would come up to where I live now. He was painting on a house. And I'm not a painter. And I'm sure he had ulterior motives, but I did nothing. I did nothing with this
Yeah.
person. But I would use him. I was manipulative. And he had benzos. And so I would just tell him what he wanted to hear. And I'm like, sure, I'll go up to Gloucester with you. I'll help you on this house. And I did help to some degree, because I needed money and I wanted the benzodiazepines. I landed here in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and the person who had the house knew what happened. I just lost Paul. And he goes, I have a room here. And this guy he was genuine. He's a nice guy. And he's like, you can live here in this house and work on the house and rent the room. I had nothing. I just lost my license. I just got an OUI. And my parents were taking me in, and I So this is where I believe God put me. And I would walk the streets, like just, bumming cigarettes, asking people. And I would say, hey, do you know where I can cop? No, I was doing that whole gig. And eventually,
Hmm.
like, it just stopped. And eventually I said, I had this God thought, like, you can either keep doing what you're doing or you can ask for help. That is not a thought that I usually would have. And then this kid I was hanging out with who's sober right now, I'm so happy, because
Awesome.
he's been having a struggle. I said, "Where is there an IOP around? Like, I don't wanna go into another detox. I know that whole gig." And, there was an IOP at the local hospital called Discover, and I decided to start it. And it was very structured. I started August 5th of 2015, and I'll tell you, Ryan, like, I had a hard time staying sober. I was shaking, I was rattling, I was doing Johnny's, gabapentin, I was doing benzos, I was chewing Suboxone. This girl downtown had Suboxone. And then I didn't want the guy who I was living with to find needles. I didn't want him to throw me out because I had nowhere to live, and I was drinking at the local bars. Gloucester is a fishing town, so it's very known for booze.
Hmm.
So I started this IOP, and I drank that weekend, and so I had to sign a contract because they urine you. So my sober date's 8/8/2015, and that
Wow.
was it, hook, line, and sinker. And I was willing to do whatever it took. Like, I don't know, like, it was like a godsend, and I participated. Like, part of
Amazing.
recovery is you've got to participate.
Do you think it
You know,
helps that you already had some education as far as
yeah.
Christianity and God, and that all kind of set in when you really wanted to get sober once and for all?
That helped, and also what helped is, like, the many times I had gone to treatment. So, like, I knew, okay, there's AA. So the Discover program told me, "Go to a meeting. If you go to a meeting in the morning, we'll give you a breakfast ticket." I had no money. Like, I'll take a free breakfast here at the cafeteria. You know what I mean? Like, why not? So, and I was crying in the AA meetings. Like, I remember this woman turned around and she goes, "Hi, my name is." I'm like, "Hi." I mean, people were
I love
so
AA
kind.
myself. It saved my life too. I go every day, Monday through Friday, and it changed my life. All the relationships I've built in there. I didn't believe in it the second I walked in, but it grew on me the more I kept coming back. So,
Yeah, I
it
hated
really
it.
is
I'm
effective.
I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, before I did,
Yeah.
but I didn't like it in my 20s. I didn't get it either.
Yep.
I did what they told me to do. Even when I didn't want to do certain things, my sponsor tells me today, she's like, "Stephanie, you've hung up on me." I'm like, "I did." Like, there's certain things I balked at. And it was very hard for me. I didn't have a car for 3.5 years. I wouldn't take the bus. Part of it was pride. I didn't want to be seen on a bus. I'm, the better than.
Hmm.
I would walk through the city. I slung a backpack in the snow and the rain, or I would call a ride if it got really bad. It was
You're like
hard. It
mid
was
30s at this point,
Yeah, I was
or like
32 when I
early
got
mid 30s.
sober. Yeah, 32, yeah,
Okay.
32, mid-30s, yeah. Yeah, so
It's incredible, like, because it seems like you hit so many, the show called Rock Bottom, so I always kind of try to find the rock bottom, but it sounds like you're like me where you had many rock bottoms and they have trap doors, so you kept digging deeper, but then the way you kind of came to your moment was just kind of walking around just being like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And that's where you kind of flipped the switch, it sounds like, and then went to IOP.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That's really cool. That's cool.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so,
You
you
started
know
going to meetings and you started to take some stuff from meetings. And how long were you in the outpatient program?
so I stayed with them for a year. So that was about 6 weeks before it was, like, every day. And then they offered a women's group for a whole year. So I did the women's group for a year, which met weekly, just to stay connected to them, which I loved. It was nice. It was really nice. And I worked 2 jobs. I did a job at a uh, breakfast joint, Lee's and then George's. I was a short order cook. And then I'd work at the hospital at night. So I nutrition from 3 to 7, and then I'd go to a night meeting. So I did a meeting in the morning, go to work. Then I'd go to my second job and then end the day with a meeting. And I had to get my license back, so I had to do those OUI classes. So, and then build my relationship with my son, which took time. And then also with my mother and my father, just repairing those relationships. And then by 3.5 years sober, I did get my license back with a $500 insurance a month. I had a lot of points on my record. I was a hot mess by the time I landed in recovery.
Did you have a lot of driving while intoxicated or something, or a lot of tickets, or why'd
Yeah.
you lose your license for so long?
So I had the OUI, and then I had, I forget it. I have the sheet still. Not just driving while, just I forget what it's called, what they call it. Just like the points would add up. Like I would just I would rear end people when when I nodded out. And so an officer would come by and like I'd get this like a ticket for what I did because I wasn't paying attention. I would nod out, like I said. So I would get these, I forget what they're called here, but anyways, so I had like 16 points on my record when I first got my license, and I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford it getting a car. For one, getting a car, I had no car. And then with the insurance, let alone, no way.
Yeah.
So it took some
Wow.
time.
Um, what other stuff did you start to learn about yourself, like as you were, going into year one, two, three of sobriety? Did you start to learn that there were like traumas in the past that you were trying to numb, or like what did you learn about that kind of stuff?
So I did learn some trauma, definitely a lot of trauma. I would say the first year was tricky. I realized that there was some trauma from my childhood. I remember I walked into a meeting and I said to an old timer, I think, something happened when I was younger. And she goes, Stephanie, and I'm so glad she said this, sit with it. And that was, I'll never forget that experience. And then by 5 years sober, I think for me, when you mention this traumas and things in the first few years, I was so into healing myself. Like I was into the self-help books. I still have tons of them. I'm reading The Mountain Is You right now, but I just wanted to heal. I was on this journey of healing, and I didn't realize how affected I was by my childhood. And that really didn't come later until 5 to 10, the 5 to 10 years. I know you mentioned 1, 2, and 3, but 1, 2, and 3, I was pretty mocusy still. And I was still obsessing in my first 3, 4, 5 years and still using other unhealthy coping mechanisms that I was using for a long time. So the drugs and alcohol are down. What other behaviors are you still going to? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, because you still have to. It's not just putting on the bottle or the drug. You really do have to look at who you are and all your personality characteristics and everything.
Right. And so I've gone to other programs like ACOA, I've gone to SLAA, I go to CODA, I go to Al-Anon. Well, I'm doing CODA now, but like Al-Anon, I've done a lot of other work because I think it's important because it's never about the drink or the drug. The drink and the drug is a symptom. Okay. And so for most people, they're self-soothing because that's how they learned how to self-soothe when they were younger because they didn't get their needs met. So today I learned how to get my own needs met and not to get it in another person, a thing, a place. It ultimately comes from me and the HP, my higher power. And that's
Hmm.
what I learned, like even with the organized religion. That's great they have organized religion, but I have to be careful with that. It's my relationship with God. And so that's what I realized in my year 5 through 10. You know?
Yeah, started to kind of. I mean, I'm still only on 16 months coming up soon, and I'm just kind of like, I can only imagine, what I've accomplished and how I've repaired my brain and my thought process and all the things I've learned about myself in the last year and a half or so. I'm just like, I can only imagine how much more it even improves, in years 5 to 10. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Yay. Yeah. 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 And that's the thing is that, like, that's what I learned is that I would get addicted to people. I would get addicted to places. And that's not healthy. And that's because, like, I really never formed who I was when I was a kid. And that's because of, like, my upbringing. I didn't learn healthy coping skills. I didn't know how to co-regulate what was going on within me. And I don't blame my parents anymore. Like they did the best they could and I had some really great moments. They're wonderful people. We all have faulty, things. But I think the real breakthrough for me was years 5 through 10. And I'd say it's even still happening. I think we're always learning and growing. And I changed my career at 4 years sober. I became a certified recovery coach, and that was like, wow. Looking back, I was so green. I wanted to save the world, and that I
Yeah.
ended up having what's it called? I ended up getting burnt out after the pandemic, and I didn't realize I was getting burnt out, which many people did in the helping field. And then I got laid off in 2023, and I realized I put my identity in that role. It's just what I do. It's not who I
Yeah.
am. You know,
Yeah.
I, that's not who it's just a title. I like to help people, but I can't attach myself to that identity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So how did that lead to what you're doing now? It says, you're a recovery advocate, providing education, inspiring change, truth teller, hope giver, all that stuff. How did that all come about?
How did that all come about? So when I was working on my own recovery, I had a get well job, as they call it, at the hospital where I was doing that IOP. And I had a friend, or have a friend, he's a social worker. And I would see him go into the rooms, and he would talk to people, and he's in recovery. And I would see him talk to people that struggled with addiction. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I love what he's doing right now. So I wanted to give back in a larger capacity than just, I was delivering trays, and people that I would know would be like, Stephanie, I love that you do that. Like, it's so nice to see your face. And so I thought to myself, how can I give back? And I have a friend who worked at the hospital as well. She's since retired. And she said to me, Stephanie, there's this position called recovery coach. And here's this training. I think you would be great at it. And so I started doing the trainings, and it's sort of all just aligned. And I believe, God, the universe just put that in my plate, or on my plate. And that started in 2019. I did the training under CCAR. So, yeah.
Awesome. So that's giving you the ability to help people and educate people, and you talk to groups that are in treatment or stuff like that, or what's like a day in the life now?
So in the day in the life of Stephanie, I have a couple
Mhm.
jobs right now. I'm finishing up my degree as an associate's for addiction counseling. I just got licensed, but I'm getting my degree. So I have two
Awesome.
roles. I work at the hospital still, as it aligns with sort of my goals. I work for an addictions consult service, and so I'll meet with people bedside, in the emergency room, or inpatient, and sort of talk about, what do you want to do? What do you want to do for aftercare? I'll
I've
also
spoken
run
to those
groups.
people before in the hospital.
You have? Yay! Cool.
Oh yeah. So that's now I know exactly what you do. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
One
that's
of
what I
those people
do.
actually saved my life and got me into treatment. So that's good.
Yes. Yay. I love that. And then I also work at a treatment center, and which I love, and I run groups. I facilitate groups there, online and in person.
Oh, awesome. That is great. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. So you're able to build relationships with a lot of these people and watch them get sober too. And like you said, there's a kid you were talking about earlier who's sober now, and so you're being able to work with people and help them through their recoveries every day.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
That's
good.
amazing. It's got to be so rewarding. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, and you're in school as we speak to become an addiction counselor, an official addiction counselor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. That is so cool. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And so your daily life is that you are working at the hospital and going to school at the same time. Does it ever become you're ever afraid of getting burnt out these days with everything you're doing?
Not the job at the hospital is I've been there 10 years, and so my boss is amazing. My coworkers are amazing. I don't feel as if I'm going to get burnt out. And like I said, I can always say something to my boss, and I know how to do pretty good self-care. So I can balance it all pretty well.
That was my next question, I guess, is when rough days come up now, or like, have you had any close to slipping up, or how have you dealt with like triggers and stuff like that on a rough day?
Hmm. I would say on a
If
rough
you had
day,
them.
yeah, I haven't had too many rough days. I think the biggest time that I went through was a couple years ago, when just everything, my layoff and just the uncertainty. And I wasn't relying on God. I was just in a lot of fear. But did I feel like drinking or drugging? No. And that's amazing. So for me, it's just really knowing that no matter what, everything will be okay. and trusting. I'm actually glad it happened because everything worked out. I'm going to be okay no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yep.
Everything is going to be okay.
Yep. And 10 years ago, you almost didn't believe that. So it's amazing how it all changed,
Yeah. So, yeah.
How's your relationship with your son and your parents now?
So my relationship with my son is good. My parents is amazing. Me and my mom actually get along. We can actually text and have conversations. I have boundaries too, and I think the same for her. My dad and I, he and I are amazing. My son sometimes still gets nervous that like I just went to California and he had said because I was anxious about something and he goes, "I thought you were using or I thought something happened." And I'm like, I have to just say, I would love for him to get into counseling, but I can't force that.
Is he like 18 or 19 now? I'm trying to do the math, but I would
Oh, that's
assume
okay.
he's
Yeah. He's 22.
22. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's
But like,
aware of he was pretty aware while you were still using of what was going on, and he probably still has those concerns, and he hasn't had any issues so far as addiction goes or anything.
no, no. Every now and then he doesn't, he drinks. I was going to say he doesn't drug. He drinks, and every now and then I'm like, "Oh, but he doesn't drink like I do or whatever." So, I mean, he has his associate's degree for nursing. He's not going for his bachelor's, but he may. So, he's a good kid. I mean, of course, it runs on my side and his dad's side, but I shouldn't say his dad's side. I don't know, but it's up to him to figure out. But I don't know. I don't know if, he seems fine, I should say.
Good, good.
I
Well,
mean,
it
he's
sounds like
22.
he's watched
Yeah.
you. Yeah, he's 22. I mean, he's going to be exposed to a lot of that party atmosphere and stuff, but he's also seen his mom go through it and recover. So I'm sure he has a lot of inspiration there to know not know what to avoid. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
cool.
yeah, he's
So
good.
life is
Yeah, but
good
our
now. And
relationship's good. Yeah.
what are your other practices that you do just to kind of keep your mind right? You said you're into a lot of self help, and do you do like meditation? Are you pretty spiritual still, and all that stuff?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked. So for the self-help, self-care things, I do meditate. I do a lot of guided meditations or just timed meditations, and I do a lot of reading. So like I said, I'm reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna West right now. And then as far as a spiritual practice, I'll still read my Bible. I love scripture and I will pray. I believe in prayer and meditation. And so I was off the beam a little bit with the scripture and just because I was trying to figure out, I did go back to the organized religion 10 years ago. And it was sort of the guilt, like I got to go back, the shame. But the truth is God wouldn't want me to feel that way. And so a couple years ago, I separated myself again and I just wasn't at peace with who I was, or I wasn't living authentically is the best way to put that. I was almost living two different lives. And so I want to be in line with one. I want to be true to myself. And so now I'm finding a spiritual practice that works for me and what works. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard if you have that religion. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So my final question is, what advice would you give to my listeners out there that are struggling or in recovery, but just want to gain some more advice and wisdom about how to stay in recovery and keep pushing forward? What advice would you give from your experience?
My advice? Oh gosh. Well, first one would be to never ever give up. I was that person who was going to give up. I thought I was deemed hopeless and I had a lot of mixed messages in my head that were learned or were told to me from others. And I would tell myself, particularly as a mother, or like I said, that were told to me. And so it's literally telling yourself, I don't deserve that. I deserve a better life. This doesn't define me. The addiction doesn't define me. And it's starting with that, and that there is hope, and many people can recover and change their lives. So it's an affliction, and you can change one day at a time.
I love that. That's well said, honestly. So I really appreciate you being on and sharing your story today. It really means a lot.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you. And really appreciate how far you've come, and you're leading into the step by step early on in the story. I was like, whoa, how did she recover? Because it was just seemed like it went to so many dark places, living in those houses and like just bounced around and jail and stuff. And I was like, when's it going to happen? And then I don't know. It's really cool how you kind of described how you turned the corner and you stayed on that track. And that's amazing. So I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really inspiring for my listeners, honestly, because your story is very unique. I hear a lot of stories and every story is unique in its own way, but just the way you did it over time and how far you made it. Almost 10 years sober, or are you 10 years sober?
10 years, yep.
Yeah. Little over 10 years. So that's awesome. So congratulations and thank you for being on the show and really appreciate it. So
thank you. I hope it wasn't
Is there anything
too long.
else you'd like to share? Not at all. No, I wanted to keep hearing more. So we talked for an hour and 17 and I enjoyed every minute of it. And is there anything else you'd like to share to my listeners as closing words?
No, I really appreciate it. And if anybody's struggling, please never give up. There is hope. So it's just where there's breath, there's life. So yeah.
How can people reach you on Instagram? Would you like to shout out your name and all that stuff?
Instagram, I think it's Stephanie Watterson. So you can reach me on Instagram with Stephanie Watterson.
Stephanie_Watterson. Got it.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much and really appreciate you being on.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.